authors, I'm Joanne Morrell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode.
Hello, authors! I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with children's indie author Kristy Nita Brown, and we're chatting on workshopping in libraries, connecting with your local Youth Collection Librarian, what to include when pitching libraries, rates of pay, best and worst bits of workshopping, Kristy's tips, her books, and so much more. This is a really jam-packed interview on all that you should be doing if you want to get yourself into workshopping in your local libraries. And I just want to make mention that the episodes that I record for the podcast are generally done before the day of, not on the day of release, but probably a few weeks before, if not a couple months before, I batch episodes. So sometimes things might be said that I've not edited out that might date it, but, I'm sure that you'll get the gist. I think in this one we talk about Book Week just been or something like that, which was obviously last month. So in my author adventure this week, I'm back on the traditional publishing submission submarine. I have two works out there at the moment, the junior fiction and also one of my picture books is out on submission. What I was thinking as well, they're both through that submittable portal, if you're familiar with that. I've talked about it previously on the show. And I also think that it's a great place to be able to obviously see all your submissions in one place, but also it's bad because you can keep checking in on the status of them. And I think if you listen a few months back, I was driving myself a bit crazy. But what is good actually is that to have multiple submissions out at one time. So if one declines, if one is rejected, then you've still got hope for the others. So I think that's quite a good process rather than just having one work on submission. Try and have a couple, try and have some different works out there. A few weeks back, I was at a workshop with Zanny Louise, who's a children's author here in Australia. And Zanny was talking about a time where she had pitched all these ideas and she had different things out there, like really went to town, and she had a few things come back at the same time. And I think it's a good approach, really, I don't know if you call it the scattergun approach, but rather than just one idea and one work. I mean, there's nothing wrong with one idea and one work. That might be all you have at this stage. But for myself, I do have a couple of works. I've got lots of works actually that are at various stages that need to be worked on, but the truth is I've just worked on them for so long. The thought of going back to them is just stomach wrenching, although it's quite glaring to me now with the experience I've had since. What could potentially be wrong with that manuscript or how to make it better? These manuscripts are not gone, forgotten about. They will emerge. They will have their time to shine. So yeah, I'll keep you posted there. So as you can tell, I feel quite upbeat again being back in that submitting phase. That's the nature of the game, isn't it? For the traditional publishing, you put stuff out there, it might get taken, it might not, and if not, you just have to keep going again. So it's like that horrible, nasty feeling when it gets rejected, and then you just put stuff out there again, and there's that feeling of hope, and you're starting over. So yeah, it's quite a sadistic industry actually. This week it's still quite slow in my author business because this is the final week of school holidays and things. As if you're a parent, then you know that things are always pushed. I've also to get stuff done or whatnot. Still ticking along with the women's fiction, and I'm still following up with my marketing of my non-fiction books. But as I said, it's all a little bit slower than usual. I have also started a new role, a new job, which is outside of writing. For the first time, I had wanted to get a job that was different to this industry. So for the last, since I undertook my writing degree, which was back in 2003, 2013 it must have been, or 2012 or something. I graduated in 2016. I have been in writing roles ever since. I have been freelance writing when I left uni, set up my own business, and thought that I could do freelance writing on the side whilst I built up my book business. And that didn't actually work out, because if you're authors which is a business, it is very hard to even just build one business up, let alone two. So the freelance writing took a back seat, and I ended up getting a commercial tech script writing job through a media company which I worked for the last 4 years part-time, while still writing my books and endeavouring to have this author career, because that is my dream. My dream is to have a sustainable career as an author, which is writing books. Book format is what I'm interested in. But right now I am earning a small income from my books, but I still need to pay the bills as well, and at the moment this business is not sustaining that. So yeah, I've gone into a completely different job. I've only just started this week, and I'll let you know how it goes, but it is going to be something that is helpful to my writing in terms of being able to, it's different, new challenges every day, it's different experiences. I'm meeting people, I'm working with people, I'm outside, which was something I wanted because my body was getting, I did an episode on the podcast, it fails me now which number it was, but it was Meg McKinley on RSI, and my hands and feet were getting tingles and things like that from sitting at the computer for all that long for that tech script writing job. All the clicking I was doing with my hands was really sore that I had to wear stints on, and I just thought, this is not something I'm going to have to be able to sustain going forward. I want to write books for a living. I need to keep this writing for myself and do it differently in a more healthier way, and have another industry pay the bills until this business is making the kind of money I need it to support myself and my family. So the new job is, I wait for it. If you've ever heard of a Segway, I am a Segway tour guide. Now, it's an incredible job, and Segways, honestly, I love the movie Mall Cop. That's one of the first ones apparently, but it's actually so far it's been a great job. It doesn't feel like a job, but it's pretty hard work as well. There's lots going on. So if you love the podcast or any of the episodes has helped you further in your author career, you can now pay it forward by buying me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/thehybridauthor. Let's all support each other. Kristy Nita Brown is a junior fiction author from Western Australia. Her debut chapter book, Looking for Lily, was shortlisted in the 2023 West Australian Young Readers Book Award and won second place in the 2022 Children and Young Adult Aspiring Authors Competition in the Younger Readers Chapter Book category. Qualified teacher and TAFE lecturer, Kristy delivers creative writing, independent publishing and filmmaking workshops at libraries and schools, and is an active member of the Australian writing community. Welcome back to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Kristy.
Thank you.
So you've been on the podcast before, episode 36, which was a while back now, chatting about self-publishing for junior fiction. Today's topic, we're talking about workshopping in libraries, which is something that you are currently out doing and doing a fabulous job, might I add. So we'll start with, in your opinion, what do you think comes first? Creating a workshop around your books and then sort of pitching to librarians? Or do you think that you can pitch to librarians without sort of having the workshop ready to go and just sort of be pitching an idea?
Yeah, I think you could probably do both. I think not having an idea of what you want to do is a little bit scarier. And I think it helps a lot that I've got the teaching background because I'm not as scared. But I think the most important thing is to have a librarian who champions you and can kind of give you a little bit of guidance or mentorship, or at least talk to you about previous authors and what they did. So I was lucky enough to have my local library, which is the town of Vic Park. One of the librarians there, lovely lady, she found out about my book. We just chatted because I used to go in there a lot with my children. And then she said, well, you're a teacher. Come on, let's get organised. Let's do one. So I was like, okay. I put together an idea and I asked her what she thought. So she was lovely to look at my presentation before I actually came in and did it. And she was like, yep, let's go for it. So that's kind of how it happened for me. That was really important, just to have that one kind of champion. I think you need that when you're starting out, and it kind of moves on from there.
Yeah, wow. Do you think that most librarians would be like that? Are they quite welcoming in that way, do you think?
No. So I've had some fantastic experiences. And I think, yeah, it definitely depends on the library. But I would suggest so most libraries are kind of connected. So in my area, we have Vic Park, but we also have South Perth down the road, and we have Ruth Faulkner in Belmont. So there's a few libraries floating around and they talk to each other. So if you don't find the right person at a library, don't be disheartened. So you would want to speak to the person who looks after the youth collection, and you just let them know you're an author and you'd like to find out if you can do some workshops or a book launch or whatever it is you want to do. And then once you find that one person, you just cherish that relationship and nurture it. Always be kind and be open to suggestions. And yeah, hopefully that person is the right person, which mine was. And then when I actually did my workshop, she took photos for me and she gave me a testimonial, which was fantastic, a beautiful quote about my session. And she honestly really liked it. So that helped me then. She kind of encouraged me. She said, like, why aren't you doing more of these?
Yeah.
Now, I hadn't even thought about it. So actually the day I presented, I thought, oh, well, I'm on such a high. I'm just going to go to the next library and chat to them. So I literally just drove to the next library, which was South Perth. And I said, I've just done a presentation. It's gone really well. This person said I should be booking more. And they're like, right, we'll get the youth coordinator for you. And the next thing I'm like standing in front of another person and she's like, tell me all about your stuff. How did it go?
Oh, that's great. I like that you done that.
Yeah, I think it helped a lot because it was fresh in my mind. And then she was like, great, we're going to book you. So it could be a little bit of luck with timing as well. I think it's important that you know the libraries, their schedules. So they generally do workshops, creative writing workshops or author talks during school holidays. And they also do a big chunk during book week, which a lot of authors refer to as book month. And December, they struggle to find people as well because a lot of authors will go away or it's their break time, but they still need to run things. So knowing those kind of dates and then probably approaching the library 3 months out because they like to set up their ticket links, which are usually a month out, and they like to advertise. So just being there at the right time is fantastic. And yeah, and if you've done anything before, like if you're a qualified teacher or you've done, presentations anywhere, like in your job, let them know that you're comfortable.
Do you think that they're more inclined to go with you because you're a teacher and you've got that presenting forward, or no? Like if you're already sort of pitching them and the idea or the workshop is probably what they'll go on rather than your experience, do you think?
Well, I think it's helped a lot that I'm a teacher because I have the working with children check and it was easy for me to follow up public liability and things like that. So it's helped me. And if you think about my branding, and my education background, the way I present, a lot of librarians will come up to me afterwards and say, oh, you can really tell you're a teacher. You've got a way with saying positive things and getting them moving and engaged and doing lots of activities. So I think it helps with my branding, but I don't necessarily think you need to be a teacher. I think you just need to be confident and kind and come to them with an idea. Sometimes the author talk where you sit up there and answer questions, depending on the situation, that will work, more like a panel thing. But I've definitely moved away from that. That's not what I want to be doing. I want to be engaging and I want to move fast and have a lot of fun.
Yep.
So
the more interactive.
That's right. I think that if you were trying to pitch just a Q&A or a panel session, you would find it quite hard because, you're also competing with every other author in the state. And there's a lot of authors perhaps that have more experience in that stuff and probably publish more. I think it's important to find your point of difference and what you can give based on who you are as a person.
Absolutely. Just to let everybody know, we're focusing on workshopping in libraries for children because you're a children's author rather than, say, for adults. So with the workshops, if obviously someone maybe has written a book and they want to do workshops on it and they feel relatively confident, but they maybe aren't a teacher or have experience going out there. So obviously the best way to learn is to attend these workshops yourself, I suppose. Would you agree? And
well, I would, but I am hesitant to say to jump straight in if they're a little bit cautious because it could go bad and then it may damage their confidence or they might not want to do it again in the future if they just had one really good session, it might have changed that whole kind of trajectory. So I think I actually would love to do it. There is a course at the Australian Writers Centre about presenting, and I think it's with Nat Amor. Yeah,
and I had a podcast with them a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah.
So doing courses and then, but still going to see what other authors do in their author talks, like to
Oh,
watch them in
totally.
there. Yeah, I was
If
lucky.
you can sneak in, you should definitely sneak in. If you have a child, enroll them.
But even still, like I work at the library and do my writing there. And as I said, because it's been book week, I happen to go into my local library, and rather than the authors actually going for the local school, going to that school, the kids were coming to the library for the sessions. And I knew the author that was there, Kitty Black. I've already given her a shout out. And I just was so excited to watch her in action. So I felt like a bit of a creep, sitting like watching them in the library. But no one cared. But I hadn't seen her present, and it was really awesome to see what she'd done. So absolutely, I think going along and seeing how other and even like the Squibby, the backyard book fair, that's a good one to see how authors present. No, that's not a workshop though, that's sort of presenting and stuff. But and of course
also the state library too, they often have presentations. That's a great idea. You should totally do that. When I presented at Book Week, I would not have noticed if you were stalking in the background.
It wasn't planned, honestly, but it was really cool. And also, I think they had Bren McDibble. Is that how you say her last name? She was there as well. And it's funny just to watch all the different styles. But in terms of creating the workshop, what's a good length for children? And also, I guess the point of a workshop is it for authors? Is it to promote their books, and obviously books in general, and a love of reading and learning and things like that? So would the author of their book, would they try and create a workshop around like the themes of their book and stuff like that? Is that what everybody does?
Okay, so you've had two questions there, and I have not had much sleep, so remind me. But the first question, I think, was the length. Generally, with the age group I do, I'm really comfortable with like 7-year-olds through to 12-year-olds when I'm talking about Looking for Lily, which was my debut book. So for those guys, I always do kind of an hour session, and that's based on my experience as a primary school teacher as well. But at about 45, 50 minutes, they start to lose the plot, and that's when you need to up the ante. Like you want to get them moving, or you want to do, 10 minutes for question time. I like to get them to dress up as a sprite. So I give them like long pokey noses and little elf ears and antennas and stuff. And they get to take, the teacher will take a photo with them wearing that kind of stuff. So you can generally write off the last 10 minutes of the hour and do something really fun. And then for Mavie and Beth, that's a younger target demographic. So I'm looking at probably 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds. I find that group a lot harder because I have to go a lot slower, and also because generally they don't know how to write letters yet or words. So everything needs to be activity based, but just using their hands, so like cutting, pasting, stay away from paints. So with those guys, I'll make kazoos, we'll do a little bit of reading, we'll talk about character, they'll definitely dress up in something and we'll play some games. So I think for length, I definitely would not go over 1 hour with one group. And then your other question was about selling books. So I don't think about workshops as an opportunity to sell my book directly to the people, because I'm actually getting paid for that session. So the way that I do it is I integrate my books into the content of the workshop. So if I'm talking about creative writing or brainstorming, for example, character ideas or a story idea, then I will talk about other books in industry, but I'll also include my own book and talk about how I got my ideas. And then, for example, I have a section when we talk about a problem. If a character faces a problem, what are some examples of problems? And then I actually read the first chapter of my new book, Mavie and Beth, because it clearly states multiple problems up front in that first chapter, and then I ask them to identify it, and then they start to suggest new problems. So I am promoting my book in a way, but I'm using it within the content of the workshop. And then I also give out bookmarks, beautiful bookmarks, double-sided, really bright. They have my books on it and quotes and beautiful pictures and patterns. So that's kind of going into their hands. And I also, with the older kids, use a worksheet which they collect data as they play games. And if you flip that over, there's a couple of pictures of my books and some, like a little blurb and a little bit of information. So it's not so much promoting my books, but just finding little avenues for it to be there if they were interested to purchase.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's great. And you've given lots of tips there for what you do. And if someone's wanting to create a workshop around their books, and obviously thinking about maybe the bigger picture of the book, but weaving it back in. So you mentioned as well before that you got chatty with your local librarian, and then from there have gone into other libraries and stuff. Obviously, you can't visit every single library to go in and talk to people, but where you can, you would suggest going in to find the right person, having a conversation. But if you can't, if you want to extend the reach, would it just be identifying the right person through emails or phone calling, and then just pitching yourself to that person via correspondence?
Yes, so the libraries in
in?
WA
Yep.
are great because they have like when they put on a workshop, they put it up on like a board, like it's a board that all the libraries can see, and they set up tickets through Ticketek or another provider, I'm not sure who. And even if it's a free workshop, they will always allocate tickets. So all of the libraries are on those systems and they see when your name pops up. Like if you can lock in one, great. If you can lock in 2 or 3 in your area, that's even better because the librarians will naturally start to see you pop up and they'll think, oh, who is this person and what are they doing? So that's the first thing that happens. And then when you present at the library and you be lovely to the librarians and they take a photo of you and give you a testimonial, then you can mention to them, do you know any other libraries that are looking? Is there any contact names you could give me of someone who would like what I've just done? So that helps. And then I've also cold emailed libraries, but I'm very strategic in what I put in the body of the email. Don't give them a whole vomit page of, you know, who I am or what I've done. I actually make my own little library press release or flyer and I attach that to the email. It's got photos of me presenting and it's also got testimonials in it, so they can see straight away. Even if you can't get a picture of the children's faces, which in most cases you can't because we don't have approval to use it, you can ask a librarian to take a photo of the crowd if it's the backs of their head. So that's really good because it shows how large the groups are that you've been presenting to. So all of that helps. You attach that to the email and you put a very targeted email together about who you are, what you can do. And then I also include that I've got a Working with Children track, I've got public liability, so all those kinds of things, and these are my rates. And then the librarians generally come back to me and say, wow, you've just like answered every single question. We're happy to book you because, you know, we know that you're onto it, you're switched on. But it's definitely not an email that says, hi, I'm an author, can I book a workshop? It's more than that. It's got to be like, here's all the information you need if you like me.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Do you include, I've saw someone include on their website, I wonder if it's less thing now that you're like COVID vaccinated or anything like that. Is that something that's
no,
important?
I don't touch that. The librarians won't touch that anymore either.
Yeah,
I
fair
think
enough.
they don't really ask anybody for proof of vaccination or
So
anything.
it's really good that you've put in the Working with Children check. Do you need to have a Working with Children check to do these presentations around children? Probably,
I believe so. I think so. I think it's a requirement. Anybody
good
can
tip.
get one. I think it costs about $120. And you just Google Working with Children track. You just apply through the government. And if you've been caught speeding in your car, it does not recognise that, just in case.
Oh, yeah.
So
only any child offences.
Yeah, it's only related to child offences. Yeah, so your cars are okay. It's okay if you just went a little bit over.
All right. Oh gosh. Yeah, I've had one in the past for an old job that I used to have, which was at St. John of God's at the sports med reception. But the ladies that used the hydro pool for the pregnancy and stuff, we used to have to look after the babies like while they were doing their exercise.
Wow.
Just in their prams sort of. But you needed a Working with Children check for that. But it was pretty easy to obtain for the work. So no, that's good. Something that you don't really think about. So obviously, when you're pitching, you've got that sheet and you put your rates right up front. Yes. So with payment, what should authors expect to be putting their rates as?
Yeah, no problem. So I've done a couple of different things with my workshops. So for a 1-hour creative writing workshop where I'm coming in as the author, I charge ASA rates. It can be a bit tough because like other authors too that are far, more experienced than me and have many books out are also charging ASA rates. So that's where you need to have like a little point of difference. There has to be a reason why they pick you over someone else. So yeah, it can be a bit tough, but I do charge the ASA rates, and every single library I've ever told has been happy with that. They just presume that I'll be charging ASA rates. So if you're not sure what ASA is, it's the Australian Society of Authors, and you can just go to their website and you can Google the rates of pay, and it's broken down into library and schools, and it's broken down if you're doing online or if you're doing live, and if you're giving them permission to use it afterwards, things like that. But having said that, I did do an amazing 5-week course with a library, one of my local libraries, where I actually work with kids to make video recordings terms of book reviews for the West Australian Young Reader Book Award. And so that was actually using not so much my author skills, but my filmmaking skills, because I also have a background, I've got teaching and filmmaking. So that's really handy. So I worked with, I think, 13 kids. They were a bit older, and we would do 1 hour a week over 5 weeks. And they filmed their own book reviews on a green screen. And I went through that process of pre-production all the way through to editing with them. And I charged rates based on what an industry professional filmmaker and editor would charge. And I'm privy to that information because I also lecture at TAFE in the film and television department. So I know how much people were charging. So I did more of a package deal. So I think if you're being hired for another reason other than being an author, you would be best to go out to industry and find out how much people with your skills are charging and then put together a package.
That's really good advice. And no, I don't think so. I think that's one thing that we all sort of struggle with, isn't it? Like self-worth, self-value, self-confidence. But at the end of the day, like you said, you're a professional. You've got that knowledge that you're putting out there. It's worth money at the end of the day. If you think about what they would have to pay to obtain that usually. But that's great. I mean, was that something that the librarian and you did together, or something that you had come up with? Because you don't really think about, we always sort of think about the short-term workshop, but maybe even the longer term one. So did you say that was over like a summer holidays or something, or was that just during the week or school times? Or
Yep. So I did, my first one was in January. So it was the January holidays. And I was a little bit cautious of saying how much I would charge. But I ended up thinking, like, if I don't start out on the right foot, I'm always going to be nervous about charging. So I just went for it because I'm an ASA member. And I was like, well, are you happy to pay ASA rates? And the librarian was like, no problem. That's what we always pay. So it really put my mind at ease. And then after I did the first one and realized, like, I put a lot of work in, I wanted to have an awesome presentation. I also use a lot of my own resources, which cost money. And unlike some people, I also print my own paper. Now, you can get the library to print the papers that you need, but I freak out because I'm a teacher. There's always problems with printers. So I end up spending like $50 on printing because I've got to have this double-sided game card that they can use, because if they don't have that, everything falls over. Charging the ASA rate for me was important because I do have a lot of costs. Yeah. And then once I did one and realized it was standard, like, I was fine to charge that from now on. And then if the library didn't want to pay that and they wanted to reduce my rates, I'd have a chat to them about why first. Like, if they're low socioeconomic, or, their budgets are low for some reason, then I would consider, having that discussion and working out other ways. But if it's just because, they're just like, oh, that's too dear, then I'm like, well, that's my time.
That's the industry standard.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna be worried about it. I'm just gonna move on. Like, everybody has a choice, and they're not prepared to do it. So that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've spoken to a lot of not professional authors, but you're a professional author, and we're all professional, but authors that have a big backlist and they've been in the industry for a long time, and they absolutely encourage all authors to use the ASA rates, because the ASA have fought for authors' rights to use these rates. That is industry standard, and it doesn't matter where you're starting out, but that is the bar, and everybody should, accordingly. There is some author websites that I've seen, and established authors that have been in the game a long time, and they are saying on their website, we go by ASA rates. However, we can work together to create a specific quote. So just ask me, like, if it's, they have that already stated on there. So that's good. So you mentioned you provide a lot of the materials yourself. Is that, so these workshops, is that something that one would, like, what would one expect if they had to, like, a workshop to come through the library? Would they expect usually the libraries to provide stuff, or would they be expected to provide their own things?
I think really it depends. Yeah. For me, it depends on, like, my brain and being comfortable. Like, if I went to a library and said, can you print this for me? I need this and this. And then I rock up on the day and it's not there. Yeah, I would just flip. Like, I wouldn't be able to handle it and the session would be terrible. So for me, it's about feeling confident and, I guess, safe, and knowing that I have what I need to be able to get through even if something goes wrong. So for me, it's a personal choice to do my own printing because it's key to my presentation. It's key that they have this one thing that they collect data on. So I know it does cost money, and I've looked, for cheaper printing options, but I can't get past it. Like, I can't ask a library to print that thing and just be scared it's not there. So that's really important. The other thing I've tried to do, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, maybe everybody could write a comment on your podcast.
Yes, we'd love that.
Yeah, I just, so I kind of tour a program, like a workshop. I don't create a workshop for every single library. So I've developed it over time and I've adjusted it so I can do it. I can now do it live in front of 90 kids, or I can do it in small groups in front of 30 kids. So it depends on the size really, but it is the same workshop. So I make changes here and there, but it is the same thing. And then once I've kind of toured that, like once I've hit a whole bunch of libraries in different areas, then I'll change to my next workshop, which will need to be different. It will still have similar ways that it runs. Like it'll still be small group activities. It'll be working fast and hard. It'll be them, collecting data and having fun and playing games. But I definitely will need to change the content soon. So that saves me time because I'm kind of a touring show at the moment. And it's awesome because every time I do it, I get more and more feedback and I can just, make it that little bit better.
And you're probably so versed in it as well that it's just like riding a bike and driving a car. You just do it and it's still excellent. Each time I heard one author recently say that they've done their presentation so much now they can just be doing it and probably thinking about a shopping list at the same time.
I was going to say, I throw in some funny jokes. Like I test the waters now because I am so confident. Like during book week, I had 90 kids chanting, "Slap that kid." They were literally going, "Slap that kid, slap that kid." So they all had like little rubber slappy hands and they were slapping a board which had superpowers listed on it and it was helping them to develop character. But 90 kids chanting "Slap that kid," and I was laughing so hard, but I'll probably not get invited back.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh no, but think how many how many people all the kids told.
Yeah, I know. One of the teachers came up to me afterwards and said, "That was an amazing presentation, but I think the kids are just going to take away 'slap that kid.'"
Yeah. And if they've got that, it might be like, "Wow." That's
but
funny.
Things like that, like and adult jokes for the teachers, like depending on the group. It's always good to know what primary school you're presenting to. Like if a primary school comes into a library and you know that it might be like a private school or something, you just need to watch your language. Like things like, sometimes a slip of the tongue, like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." But it's a religious school. So maybe you need to say, "Oh my gosh."
Yes, good points there. So your new book, Maevie and Beth, your workshop that you're sort of putting out at the moment is, remind me again, is it is it wooden whistle?
Oh, Maevie and Beth, yes. So this is my new workshop that I'm touring at the moment. I've only done it a couple of times because I love the Looking for Lily workshop. It works so well. But yes, I have to move on. I can't just keep doing that forever.
Well, you can still do that though. Yeah. But
So with Maevie and Beth, I make kazoos with the kids.
Oh, kazoos, yeah.
And so
are you providing that?
Yeah, I am, because so one of the libraries said that they would provide the items to make the kazoos. And so I'm a bit of a nerd. I went home and I'm got to make this kazoo first and it has to work because I can't teach a session where I'm like risking it. Yeah. And the librarian's like, no, I've done it. And so I bought all these different sizes of pop sticks. I had to find lackey bands, which is impossible because they pretty much don't exist anymore. And I'm so glad I did because there was an issue with the lackey bands. They had to be a certain size and they had to match up pop sticks. So she had made little tiny ones and I had made really big ones and I had tested like all different types. So I was like, it's only a couple of dollars and the kids will keep them forever. So I was just like, okay, I'll sort it out. So I went and got everything I needed and the kazoos were amazing. And I'm just so glad I tested what I was doing. It's really important to test. It's the same with Looking for Lily. I practiced on my husband and my daughter and I made sure, the time limit was there and it got to 1 hour and I made sure they enjoyed it.
Yeah. Did you actually do that? You did it from start to finish, making the activities, like all of it?
That's right. So I even I did the games grid and my husband was there spinning spinners and slapping things with his slappy hand and they were having a ball.
Enjoyed it. Oh, well, that's it. Hey, that's the toughest crowd won over. So that's really good advice there. So can you share with us, what has been coming to mind, like the best and worst moments of presenting and sharing any more tips that you want? Because you've already shared so much.
Okay. So the worst presentation was my very first one, which will probably be the same for everybody. body. So don't let it eat you up if this happens to you. Like, just move on, because seriously, it happens to everyone. So I went country and I went out to a primary school who asked me to present. And I guess I questioned myself and I asked some author friends what they would do. And I had been given some advice to run an activity. So I was like, okay, that's a pretty cute activity. I'll give that a go. And I did it at home and I wasn't quite sure. And then I went down to the school and I did it, and it just did not work. It was it just was too quick. I didn't have enough content, and I didn't actually believe in the activity I ran because I didn't design it myself, and I didn't have passion for it. So I think it's really important that no matter what, you create a workshop that you love yourself and that you've practiced and that you've tested if you're building stuff or, playing games. And then when you walk into that room for that very first time, you believe in what you're doing. So if you take too much advice from other people and you try something they suggest, it sometimes doesn't work out because you don't know what you're doing or you don't believe it. So that was the very worst thing that happened. Actually, one other thing recently happened. So this is kind of funny. You'll like this one.
I'm like, ooh, tell me.
I was teaching characters, and I was saying that there are 3 types of characters. There's a animal character, a human character, and a fantastical creature. And I actually, halfway through the presentation, I said, now, what were those 3 things? There was an A word, there was a H word, and there was a very long F word. And the kids just went, what? So that was probably the worst thing I've ever done. And straight away after the presentation, I checked what primary school it was, hoping it wasn't the wrong kind of primary school. And thank goodness it wasn't the wrong kind of primary school.
Oh, gosh.
I think the teachers just laughed it off.
Yeah,
but
I'm
yeah,
sure.
just, your mouth. And then I guess the best things, like, I really loved doing the 5-week course with the filmmaking because I got to test things like each week we'd start. So I only had them for an hour, and to teach kids how to make films in like 5 hours, 1 hour per week, is crazy. So I had to select the content really carefully, but I knew that you're in that hour, you really only get 30 minutes of them really concentrating. The rest of the time is like getting to know each other, being nervous.
How many kids?
I started with 13, I think. I think it was a 12-person course, but someone snuck in that shouldn't have been there.
So you know who you are.
Each week I started with an icebreaker, and that's like a really fun game. So you can just Google icebreakers and get them standing up, and they learn to work with each other a lot quicker. And I also, and this is really handy, I moved the seats around every single week. So you could do this even with a one-off. Have a really good think about how you want your tables. And for me, I usually do small groups of 6, and within that small group of 6, which is kind of like a square, I'll break them down into pairs. So I'll have 3 groups of 2 on each table working. But each week with that course, like one week they walked in and there was small groups. The next week they walked in and there was a huge boardroom. Week after that they walked in, there was no tables at all, only chairs in a circle.
So they don't stay in with your small groups. If they sat down, they're not in that small group.
No, I rotate every week. Yeah, they've got to get to know each other if it's a longer course.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's good advice. Do you think you sort of have to think about what is the purpose of the workshop? And as you said, it's not necessarily because you're getting paid. It is kind of promoting your books in a way, but what is the purpose of the workshop, educational wise, entertainment wise? What do you want? Like, thinking of the extension when the kids leave, what do you want them to have left with? Like, fun, excited, or like actually have left with the knowledge of something? Like, it's important to think of afterwards, I suppose, or...
Yep. So if I've got the kids for 1 hour, there's 3 things that I want to hit. So I want to connect with them. And my first couple of slides is about me as a young person, probably around their age, and my experiences of writing, and generally their negative experiences, like things that I felt as a kid. And so I can engage with them that way and connect. So that's the first thing I want to do. I want to have some kind of connection, which is quite difficult in 1 hour when you're in like a presentation. The second thing that I want them to do is just to learn one thing. If they can walk away after my workshop having learned one thing that's new about writing, then I'm super happy. And I ask them at the end, and I tell them at the start, I'm like, you're going to learn one thing today. And then at the end I go, okay, what was that one thing? And so they all put up their hands, and then I ask each person, and generally they'll summarize the whole class for me. So even if they only did learn one thing, they're hearing the whole thing. So that works really well. And then the third thing that I want is for them to have fun. They have to walk away feeling positive. I don't ever raise my voice. I never yell. If a kid is being rowdy or, playing around a bit, I will always compliment the kid next to him for doing, or her for doing the right thing. I'll say, wow, you're sitting up really beautifully. And then that kid that's next to that person goes, oh,
yeah.
Yeah, it's positive reinforcement. So yeah, I want them to walk away happy. And generally the librarians say to me that on their way out, the kids are like, wow, that was amazing. Or they'll come up to the desk and say they had a really great time. So if I can get that kind of feedback, then like I've done my job and I'm happy to be paid.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Just one thing coming to mind, which, I think you touched on sort of in the beginning about librarians and their schedules and stuff like that. So if you are pitching a workshop, how far in advance? Because I know a lot of the library systems are different with their events people. Some are booked out like sort of 3 months in advance. Some are sort of just every couple of weeks. Like they're all different really. So what time frame would you say if you were pitching this year, would you be pitching now, say for next year, or when should you be timing this?
Yeah. So I think it's important to have some news. Like I don't mean about like a huge email about I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. I think it's important to have one key piece of information that will hook them in. So like, for example, if you've been shortlisted in a competition or you've been placed in something, or, you've had a whole bunch of sales on, I don't know, Amazon, or, you've got a bit of news, I think that helps to hook them in. I've also sent them a link to podcasts like yours where I go, this is what I'm like live, and just give them a taster, so that helps. And then I think that right now I'm booking for December, January holidays and 2024. I think like if you're new to this, you really need to start with a champion. You really need to find the right person in your local area to get you through those first couple of presentations. Until you've done that, I definitely wouldn't email out cold. I would wait until I've got something to show, like photos and a quote, and that you're confident and comfortable.
Yep.
So yeah, probably 3 months out. And don't harass. Like the librarians will read it. They all work part-time. No librarian I know in youth collections area works full-time that I'm aware of. They will all work like a Monday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. And getting to know their schedule, or like you'll get the notice that says they're not in those days, and don't stress about it. If you haven't heard anything within a couple of weeks, then they're probably not interested. Move on. And then just remember, so I have a spreadsheet where I mark down all the libraries I've contacted and on what date, and then I probably won't hit another library that hasn't replied for another 6 or 12 months. And then the libraries that do reply and say, we're not interested, you're not the right kind of person for us, or it's too expensive, I make a note, and I probably won't hit them again until I'm in another level of famous. Or maybe they'll come to me one day, 10 years time.
No, that's it. Well, please tell us about the new book and where everyone can find, the other book, Looking for Lily and Maeve and Beth, and find all about you and your fabulous workshops.
No problem. I've been talking about Looking for Lily for so long that it's quite difficult to talk about Maeve and Beth. It's brand new. Yeah, Maeve and Beth is for 5 to 10-year-olds. It's a chapter book, but it's definitely like an early reader chapter book. So Looking for Lily was 14,000 words. Maeve and Beth's only 4,000. It's got some beautiful illustrations by local author Alison Mutton, who won the Spark Award with Squibby. She's great. She brought so much to the book. So it is available Australia-wide. I have a distribution through John Reed Books and the Australian Society of Authors. Any independent publisher can do that. So I encourage you to do a workshop with the ASA and learn about it and decide whether or not it's for you. I choose to do it because it gets me into all the bookstores. So you can purchase Maeve and Beth from Booktopia, Amazon, you can go into Dimmix, your local bookstore, you can order it because I'm in all the systems. And Looking for Lily, I kind of do limited print runs, so there's not many floating around. So if you find one and you'd like to read it, grab it, because I've heard there's only about 10 left in Australia and I'm not doing another print run. However, you can print on demand through Amazon.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kristy, for your expertise. It's been absolutely fantastic. Really, really good tips there. And new book looks fabulous. So congrats to you.
Thanks for having me. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
So there you have it, folks. The Supreme Kristy Nita Brown, who is so generous with her advice and experiences, and she's just a super fantastic author, presenter, an all-round amazing human being. So go and check out Looking for Lily and Maeve and Beth, just absolute quality in independent publishing. Her books have won awards, voted by kids, and yeah, really, really fantastic products that Kristy produces. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, we have non-fiction and thriller writer, podcaster, and author entrepreneur Joanna Penn chatting to us about her new publication and Kickstarter, Writing the Shadow. And it truly is an episode not to be missed as we deep dive into the inner workings of yourself as an author and how it can help your creative business going forward. I wish you well in your author adventure this next week. That's it from me. It's bye for now.
That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.